Launched for the first time in 2019, the XL6 initially to me didn't make much sense because I considered it as a glossed up version of the Ertiga with fewer seats and a higher price tag. But over these last several years, the car has grown onto me, and I have no problems in admitting I've recommended it to several MPV buyers. Cut to 2022 and Maruti Suzuki continues to underline the premium credentials of the XL6. This car right here now gets a new engine, more features on the inside, while still continuing to be a practical MPV for the Indian car market. What is this car all about? You're watching HT Auto, I'm Shubhadeep, and today we're taking a closer look at the 2022 Maruti Suzuki XL6. Dimensionally, nothing has changed on the new 2022 XL6, which means that there is still the promise of a spacious cabin. But before we take a look at the interiors, there are subtle changes on the outside that we need to highlight. There is a design tweak on the front grille with a more prominent chrome addition here. The MPV also now sits on larger 16-inch wheels with a sportier two-tone alloy design. At the rear, the tail light has undergone a design tweak too, and there is a dash mode of that chrome here as well. As far as machismo goes, this perhaps is as stylish as an MPV can really get without still making SUVs blush. But cabin space and features, well, that's another tale. Now the XL6 on the inside gets a list of really cool feature upgrades, one literally so. Now while you've seen this function in many rival models across price brackets and segments, it's great that Maruti has now made XL6 the first Maruti car to get front ventilated seats. It seems like the company is finally acknowledging that India is indeed a hot country. Now, as far as operation is concerned, there's really no rocket science. It's something that's on other models as well. There are two buttons placed here just above the center console. You can select the intensity of the cooling on both the driver side and the front passenger side. Now, while the front ventilated seats is an absolutely brand new function, what is not is that XL6 now also gets support for Suzuki Connect. You've seen it in some other models from Maruti in recent times, much recently with the Baleno getting this functionality. If you've not checked out our review of the Baleno where we've spoken in depth about the Suzuki Connect, well, do check out that review. But in a nutshell, Suzuki Connect allows you to access a whole lot of features, some even remotely via smartphone and smartwatch compatibility. You can check vehicle stats on your phone, you can check vehicle parameters on your phone as well. Now there is also support for Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, there is support for Amazon Alexa and Google Home as well. So that's great. The 7-inch display screen itself has been updated here, so that's another positive as far as this car is concerned. You also get a nicely layered center console here. The most interesting feature that I like here is that you have cooling functionality for the cup holders you get here. So you can cool your beverages, or just in case your phone is running hot, well, you can place your phone here and help it to cool down. Now these are some of the good features that we have on the XL6. Some features that are missing and are also offered in rival models that the XL6 still doesn't have is, well, there is no sunroof of any size in this car. There is no ambient lighting, although you do get puddle lamps for the front passenger and the driver. There is no HUD display, which you did see in the Baleno for the first time ever. I'm not entirely sure that an MPV requires that, but well, because the Baleno got it, I expected it to also be present in at least the top variant of the XL6. All of that said, the XL6 continues to bet big on its strengths, inherent strengths. So you have a really nice dashboard layout. There is of course the use of hard plastics all around, but that, well, is expected. There is a nice new finish on the dash here. There is a whole lot of storage space all around in the glove box, on the center console that we've already spoken about, and on the doors as well. The windows are large and there is a general sense of airiness inside the cabin. those familiar with the newer Maruti models will also be familiar with the 3 buttons that you get on the right side of the steering wheel. You get controls for auto on and off, 360 camera view, which makes its debut in the XL6, and traction control as well. But since we mentioned the 360-degree camera view, you saw it for the first time in the Baleno, and now it comes in the XL6 as well. And that's great because the XL6 is dimensionally a bigger car than the Baleno, and hence this feature is even more required in this vehicle. The steering wheel is flat bottom, has steering mounted controls, so that's another positive. On the flip side, yet again though, there is a semi-digital driver display. Rivals are offering an all-digital display in here now, but inside the XL6, while you do have information being put out in a very legible, clear, bright manner, you would still be dependent on an analog tachometer and speedometer. But the truest test of an MPV, space of course. Happy to report that the XL6 continues to be at its finest in the second row, while the third row is still decent enough to squeeze in an adult or two. What is missing in the XL6 though is a one-touch tumble-down feature that you get in the Karens, which frankly could have been a nice addition. While we don't have this MPV loaded to the brim, I'm mighty curious to test the new engine under the hood. So let's get this Maruti rolling. Now, as I keep saying, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and the proof of a car is in how it drives. The XL6 gets the new 1.5-litre dual-jet engine, which makes use of 2 fuel injectors per cylinder, which means better fuel injection control. Maruti claims better fuel efficiency and a greater control over the power figures. Just for the record, there is 103 HP for the taking and 138 Newton meters of torque. What's also new is the 6-speed gearbox. Now, all of this may seem like jargon. Let's actually take this Maruti and get it rolling. At the very onset, you will realize that this car has a bit more pulling power than the XL6 that we've so far been used to. And that's a good thing. The automatic transmission box is again something that we were a little skeptical about, but so far we've not had anything much to complain about. Yes, there is a certain amount of resistance in terms of pulling power, and remember, right now the car is pretty empty. There is nobody else in the car, and there is hardly any luggage. But if you do feel that there is that sense of lacking when it comes to power, the great thing about the XL6 now is that it makes use of paddle shifters. So you have these nifty controls here, and you can control what the car does, especially helpful if you're doing uphill climbs. Like I am right now, I'm not getting the amount of pulling power that I would prefer, so one click of a button and the XL6 gets a move on. Now, this 1.5-litre engine is also what will make its way to other upcoming Maruti models, especially the ones that are bigger in dimension. So there is much talk about the new SUV that Maruti is apparently working on that will rival the Creta, and it is expected that it is this engine that will make its way to that car as well. In terms of drive dynamics, Maruti hasn't said anything at all on the suspension setup and if it's been retuned, but I do feel that it has actually, because I'm mighty impressed with the suspension setup of this car. We've driven this car on roads which are far less than perfect, and sitting in the driver's seat as well as in the middle and the third row, the suspension setup seemed really nicely well done. There's nothing new really to report as far as the steering is concerned. It's well tuned as you would expect in a Maruti car. For quick sharp turns, it fares reasonably well, and there is slight resistance from the tires, and there is a little bit of body roll as well, more so as you go progressively behind in these rows. The XL6, like most Maruti models, is a great ambler on city roads, but put it out on open stretches, on highway stretches, it does take its own little sweet time to build its way to triple-digit marks. But once you do hit triple-digit marks, the steady character of the XL6, which will actually have you pleasantly surprised. Now, while the paddle shifters are great, if you want absolute control, then of course the manual transmission is what you should be choosing. So it's time for us to swap cars and take a look at what the manual transmission has on offer. Now, while the automatic transmission unit is brand new, what is absolutely familiar and identical is the 5-speed manual transmission. The manual transmission unit on the XL6 works on predictable lines, and somebody who's already been inside an XL6 or even some of the other Maruti models would find this transmission unit very, very predictable. The shift ranges on the XL6 manual transmission aren't exactly what you would get on Korean cars, which have a short throw, but it's on understandably planted lines. Once the XL6 does hit the 3000 RPM mark out on open roads, the car performs reasonably well, and it's a pleasure to drive and is steady even at triple-digit speeds or beyond. Over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, the XL6 has established itself as a decent, pleasant family car, especially in its segment. And somebody who's been considering an XL6 for some time now would actually, just for the drive purposes of the XL6, appreciate the fact that this car has a fine balance between city option and the occasional highway option as well, if so desired. The XL6 is definitely more premium now than it has ever been, but remember, it's also more expensive than the model it replaces in the market. Maruti seems to be moving towards a want more, pay more sort of a model, and very frankly, I am okay with that. But what's more important is, are you? What do you make of this car right here and this review? Do let us know, and do check out our detailed written review of the all-new Maruti Suzuki XL6. For now though, that's all the time we have. As always, stay safe, drive safe.